Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Welcome back. My next guest is Labour's Baroness Shami Chakrabarti, now the Shadow Attorney General in Jeremy Corbyn's controversial new cabinet. Shami, many people think that Jeremy Corbyn is an irredeemable loser when it comes to the next general election. Alistair Campbell sitting over there is one of them. What do you see in Jeremy Corbyn?
I think people have underestimated Jeremy Corbyn for a very long time. He has won 2 massive mandates from his own party. That party is now the biggest political party in Europe, and of course that doesn't deliver the general election victory, but it's a really good start. So I think really it is time for the Labour Party to get its act together and to unite behind a leader with a very strong mandate. He has reached out to people who did not support his leadership bid. You've heard about Keir Starmer, who now shadows David Davis. We've seen the return of Nia Griffiths and Joe Stevens. He's got a diverse shadow cabinet in terms of gender, race and the regions of this country. And the nonsense kind of has to stop. The civil war has to stop because, as Alistair said, it is really time now for the party to hold the government to account, particularly over this very, very difficult time around Brexit.
Now, you made your name campaigning against law officers, as I mentioned earlier.
Never against law officers. It's quite an important distinction to make. I have admired law officers of both sides of the aisle. Dominic Grieve, I think, is probably one of the greatest Attorney Generals of recent times. He's a Conservative. Law officers are lawyers first and politicians second. And
so when their judgments are wrong, you've raised that?
No, if you want to be clear about what I spent a lot of time doing, I was often a bit of a thorn in the side of Home Secretaries.
Yeah, that's also true. And David Blunkett, a former Home Secretary, has today said that he's very worried about your appointment because of the way that he feels you've attacked the intelligence and security services.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that, and I look forward to trying to reassure him, in the House of Lords in due course. But I think the important thing about law officers, that's attorneys and solicitors general and their shadows, is that they try to keep governments and shadow governments on the straight and narrow when it comes to the rule of law.
Now, you rather sort of famously did a report for Jeremy Corbyn looking at allegations of anti-Semitism in the party. I read the report. I'm still not 100% clear whether you think anti-Semitism is a serious issue for Labour.
Well, if you have read the report, I hope you'll see that it is a serious issue. And of course, it's a serious issue in the country at large, but Labour
why didn't you mention Ken Livingstone once in the report, given that it was...
I'll tell you why. I'll give a very straight answer to that. People pending discipline should not have their due process compromised by my broader thematic report, which was about making recommendations for rule changes, for culture change in the party.
Are you allowed to say now what you think should happen to Ken Livingstone?
I don't think I am, because I believe that Mr Livingstone is still facing disciplinary hearings within the party. No, this is what being a law officer is all about.
Right.
It's about respecting principles of natural justice and making sure that I don't compromise people's due process within the party. This is the party that says it's the party of equality and human rights. That means not being anti-Semitic and misogynistic and otherwise hateful, but it also means respecting due process for individuals pending discipline.
Now, quite a lot of people said you were compromised by taking that peerage in the context of a report that was supposed to be independent. Chief Rabbi said that, for example.
People said I was compromised the moment I joined the Labour Party, and I joined the Labour Party before I agreed to do the inquiry. Why? Because this was a party commissioned by the party for itself. This is the Labour Party looking at itself in the mirror, and I didn't feel that I would have any sway over members of the party who might be deeply suspicious of this woman from outside. I didn't think I would have a voice to tell them to be their better selves if they didn't understand that I am of them and I want to do what's best for, yes, the country, but also the party in its crucial role.
Now, we've been talking grammar schools this morning.
Yeah.
For or against?
I have real concerns about grammar schools. I've met too many people in my life of my age and older who were deeply scarred by the 11 plus exam and by that kind of segregation. And I know that you're now going to follow up by asking me about newspaper reports about my own son's education. All I will say is that I live a charmed and privileged life, much more now than I ever did when I was a child. But people on the left have often had charmed and privileged lives. But what I do in politics...
But the Tories will say that it's hypocritical because if you've chosen a selective path for your son, how can you then deprive a selective path for poorer people?
Well, I mean, what I would say about that is that, you know, I live in a nice big house and eat nice food and my neighbours are homeless and go to food banks. Does that make me a hypocrite, or does it make me someone who is trying to do best, not just for my own family, but for other people's families too? And this thing about, you know, selection, you know, if you've got money, you will always be all right. If you don't have money in this country, you are increasingly not all right.
One of the arguments
arguments
about how to raise standards in state schools is to make sure that middle-class families send their kids to them.
I understand that. You know, I'm not going to get into the personal stuff because there is a child in this world who didn't choose to be Shami Chakrabarti's child. So I'm afraid I'm going to leave it at that.
But just to be clear, though, your own personal position is that the Labour Party is right to be campaigning against...
Absolutely. And why? Because in my lifetime, I've met too many people, including incredibly bright, successful people who carried that scar of failing the 11 plus and that segregation in schooling.
Shami Chakrabarti, many thanks.
I've been